Hey, it's Ethanamil here. I'm gonna be honest, this is like 40 minutes before this video is going live. I had a whole intro planned out, and it just turned out really bad, and I didn't like it, so let me instead just cut to the chase. I love October, and with Halloween, it's got the scary vibe to it, and Survivor has all sorts of scary things that have happened throughout the show's history, so it's a perfect match for a video. Whether it be in-your-face scary, theoretically scary, or just straight-up horrifying, there's a lot to get through, so without further ado, let's take a look at the scariest moments in the history of Survivor.
Come on, bitch!
I want to see him do his best for his family and everything. It's just, for someone to go off the handle like that, it's a little scary.
Let's start things off with a bang. There have been some pretty crazy things that contestants have stumbled upon out on the island, including a brick of cocaine that Shane Powers found in Panama. So, what could be crazier than that? Well, how about actual human remains? Yeah, real human bones. On day 19 of Survivor Marquesas, some members of the Muramu tribe, specifically Kathy Vavrick O'Brien, stumbled upon bits of ribcage in a fractured human skull, and it was not a prop. The fracture on the skull indicated some blunt force trauma, meaning that the human remains could have been all that was left from a murder. It's almost like a real-life nightmare, and rumor has it that upon learning of the news, the Marquesas government ordered the contestants off of that beach, which led to an immediate merge to the Rodu beach. Whether or not that's true, it's an unbelievably eerie situation, and one of those things that, when you really think about it, is very much chill-inducing. We'll never figure out who those bones belong to or what happened with them, and that definitely adds to the spook factor, and it makes it an easy, top scary moment in the history of Survivor.
It's the skull of a man!
Oh, that's definitely a skull.
What is that? Is that the eyeballs?
Yeah, this is the eye sockets right here.
Oh!
Not every scary moment is spooky scary, though. Sometimes it's different, like life-threatening scary. And Survivor's had a fair share of moments like these. I'll start off with the first scary situation, but I'll make it quick because I don't want to talk about this individual for too long. In Season 2, the Australian outback, Michael Scoopin fell into a fire that he was tending, and the skin was just falling off of his hands. It was truly gruesome to watch, especially with the screams of pain that accompanied it. It was the first time that a lot of viewers really realized how real Survivor was, and that the survival aspect was not something that could just be brushed over. It was a scary realization in general, resulting in the first medevac the show had ever seen, and unfortunately wouldn't be the last time that scary moments like these would occur. In Season 19, Samoa, Russell Swan was participating in an immunity challenge when he just passed out, just like that. One moment he was participating, and the next he was slumped over the marble maze that he was just holding on to. It was a scary, sudden moment that was ingrained into many viewers' minds the second it happened. What's worse is that, right after medical got to him, he seemed to be doing better before his eyes appeared glossy once more, being unresponsive to any of the medics' attempts to try and get his attention. Luckily, Russell ended up being okay, but he had to be medevaced from the show, and overall, it was just an extremely scary moment that once again showed just how scary Survivor could get.
Stop moving! Stop moving! Russell, get off the table!
Russell, get off! I want the ball to come
Russell!
to your ball. That we have to go down towards.
Whoa! Russell, you with me?
Russ? 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 Russ, you with us? Hold in. Russ? Russell. Russ, talk to me. Russ, talk to me. Russell, wake up, mate. Wake up.
And years later, we get what could possibly be the scariest challenge of all times in terms of what the contestants went through. During a challenge on Season 32, Go Wrong, not one, not two, but 3 players needed medical attention after the challenge. The worst part is that these contestants were dropping one after the other, causing absolute frantic mayhem that added to the scariness of the situation. Sydney and Debbie both collapsed after the challenge, but luckily were not in too bad of a condition, and after being tended to, they were back up and ready to go. Caleb Reynolds, on the other hand, was not nearly as lucky. Almost immediately after clutching up and winning the challenge for his tribe, Caleb collapsed due to heat stroke, and it was really bad. His temperature rose all the way up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, which is beyond what I thought was even possible, and production legitimately thought that there was a chance that they were going to lose Caleb. It is by far the scariest medical evacuation the show has ever seen, due to the seriousness of it all. Caleb spent 5 days in the ICU before it was deemed too dangerous to keep him in Cambodia, and he was flown back to the States where he thankfully recovered. But in general, if you want to talk about scary moments, here it is. In my opinion, the scariest moment in all of the show's history.
Is that it? Yeah! Beauty pulls it out! You guys do what you have to do. Just do. Tell me what's going on, Joe.
Mrs. Caleb getting overheated. struggling to cope with the temperature. You just take it easy. Nice steady breathing.
All right, everybody on the crew is essential personnel.
Caleb, you still with us?
Umbrellas,
Caleb?
coolers, water. Find a spot to help.
Caleb, can you hear me? Caleb, can you hear me? Caleb, you still with us? Caleb, you still with us? Caleb.
Oh my god. Caleb was invincible. I did too.
But there's one more scary moment that I want to talk about that resulted in a medical evacuation. After the first challenge in Season 37, David vs. Goliath, Pat Cusack injured his back on the boat ride back after the boat crashed into some intense waves, and the sounds that Pat was making was just bone-chilling to say the least. Pat's injury left him short of breath, laying down, and it was painful to try and grasp exactly how Pat was feeling. He showed a lot of heart and wanted to stay in the game, but the injury was just too much for the medics to feel good about him continuing, and they pulled him. What makes this so scary, other than the obvious reasons, is that this happened due to the one thing that wasn't even Survivor related. It was just a boat ride back to camp. It showed that even elements outside of the game were capable of causing havoc, and I'm sure for everyone on that David tribe, it was an incredibly scary moment. And because it wasn't caught on camera, it only left us with our imaginations to decipher how that scene played out, which brings out some scary images. Hopefully, Survivor can go the rest of its lifespan without any more incidents like these, but truth be told, it's a scary thought knowing that it could happen again at any time and there's no way to prepare for situations like these. Enough talk about people getting injured. We got a few more scary things that luckily aren't about life-threatening situations. Just kidding, because the next scary moment that occurred could have been absolutely devastating had production not stepped in at the right time. It was on day 2 of Survivor 33, Millennials vs. Gen X. A dangerous cyclone looked to be heading right towards the islands that Survivor was filming on, and the crew made the decision to evacuate the contestants from their shelters for the night in case things took a turn for the worse, and thank God they did. The cyclone came in and it hit hard. A huge tree ended up falling right on the shelter of one of the tribes and completely destroyed it, meaning that had an evacuation not taken place, this giant tree would have fallen right on top of multiple unsuspecting castaways, likely killing them in the process. What a terrifying circumstance. It was a massive, life-threatening storm, and had the decision been made to not evacuate the players that night, there would have been a different type of evacuation the next day. It could have been the end of Survivor, because losing the lives of any number of contestants when it could have been avoided likely would have led to something serious. It's a scary thought that the storm was that dangerous and that things could have gone so wrong that night, but thank goodness for the production team being smart and cautious and bringing the players to a safe location. But hot damn, I'd be terrified out of my mind if I was one of those players that walked back to camp to see a giant tree in the place that I planned on sleeping the night before.
We are going to evacuate.
Oh my God.
That means it's serious.
It's an interesting dad.
We would have been totally hurt.
Before I get to the last scary thing, which, in my opinion, is the thing of nightmares, let's go over a few more smaller things that really aren't the scariest, but definitely deserving of a mention. First, we have Brandon Hance's meltdown on Caramoan. It seemed as though he had reached a breaking point and went on a huge tirade at the favorites camp, throwing rice everywhere, flipping over anything in his path, and you could visibly see the fear in some of the other players' faces.
They'll vote me out.
Brandon!
Well, hey, Phil, here's a reason to vote me out, you little... Huh? With your stealth all rust bull, huh? Come on, bitch!
Speaking of Caramoan, there's the immunity challenge called Last Gasp, where the players are in the water face up under a grate of sorts. And as the tide gets higher, it gets harder and harder to catch breaths of air as the water washes over your face. The basis of the challenge is basically go until you feel like you're going to drown, and that's scary as hell to me. Next, I know a lot of people don't like Brian Heidig for obvious reasons, but the fact that there exists an alternate universe where Clay Jordan gets the victory is pretty scary. Think about all the times content creators talk about winners, but in that reality, they have to do a deep dive into Clay Jordan's game. That's some scary stuff.
The winner of Survivor Thailand, Clay.
A couple more hypothetical thoughts. I've talked about this scenario very deeply in my Survivor What If video, but basically, just know that in Season 3, Survivor Africa, had production known that Lindsay Richter had no body piercings, everything we know about Survivor would change. We would likely no longer have Ethan, Amber, and Boston Rob as winners. Boston Rob and Amber potentially never even get married, and it changes the early game of Winners at War tremendously, if the season even ends up happening at all. So yeah, it's kind of scary how much the dead relative effect would change things. It's also scary that 80% of the people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so if you want to help make that number a little less spooky, consider subscribing for more content like this. But now, let's move on to the most horrifying, bone-chilling moment that happened in the history of the show, at least for me. If you're squeamish, now is your warning to get out. Okay. The poor soul who had to endure this top spot is Jennifer Lanzetti. During Survivor Go Wrong, on just day 2, Jennifer felt some severe pain in her ear, and she eventually came to the horrifying realization that a bug had crawled into her ear. Holy moly, I cannot even begin to describe the amount of horrifyingness that this exudes. To make matters worse, she wasn't even 100% sure that it was a bug, but she described that she had the sensation of hearing a bug's little legs crawling around inside her head, and she believed the bug was digging deeper and deeper into her ear canal, and have you heard enough yet? Jennifer was unable to sleep throughout the night, obviously, as the pain had just become more excruciating and discomforting, and on the morning of day 3, she found that her ear had actually started to bleed. As her tribe-mates were watching over her, they spotted a tiny worm crawling out of her ear. Can you imagine having a bug crawl into your ear and basically just chilling out there for a day, burrowing freely as it pleases while you're just at the mercy of this little microscopic bitch? Sorry, I'm sure the bug was just trying to mind its own business, but just the thought of any bug hanging out inside of my ear while I'm completely helpless is quite possibly the scariest thought that Survivor has ever made me have, so thanks for that. I know in the grand scheme of things that this isn't the scariest thing ever, as we were literally just talking about contestants almost dying, but this is a different type of gruesome that just made me jitter with chills a lot more than anything else, so for me this takes the top spot.
I'm actually worried. I'm not sure, but I think I got a bug in my ear. I can't sleep. I can't get comfortable. It's just disgusting hearing these little legs crawl around in your head. Like it's digging deeper into my ear canal. I don't know what that does to a person. I don't know what it's doing to me. It's so painful. All night, I haven't slept like not even a minute.
You okay?
I want to know what is inside me that is causing my ear to bleed. I can hear him. He's literally digging. Like that's what it. Ah! That's what it sounds like.
As soon as it gets out of your ear, I'm not gonna make it worse.
Ew! That little critter was clean and clear.
There he is.
You got your blood in there and everything.
And there we go. As we can see, Survivor isn't a cakewalk. Scary stuff just happens. It's a part of the show. Oftentimes, it's a one-and-done kind of ordeal, like spooky in the moment stuff, but not a big deal after the fact. But sometimes it's actually a big deal. And as unfortunate as these incidents can be at times, when looking at the big picture, it's part of what makes Survivor, Survivor. But I'm always down for a healthy dose of spook on my Wednesday nights, especially when they're dead relatives disguised as butterflies. And with that, we finished the video. If you enjoyed the spooks, make sure you subscribe because we'll be looking at the scariest moments in the other reality shows that I cover over the next couple of weeks. And, as always, here's a clip for you on your way out.
And I'm your second chance. So, Philip, please don't let this guy get to the end of the game. Please don't let him get to the end of the game.
Where are you going?
We realize that this is going to be a challenge for immunity, and it's for that reason that we're going to forfeit the challenge so that we may go to tribal.
Let me help you out a little bit, okay? They don't respect anything about the fans. That's bull, Corinne. Don't take crap from anybody. You're the underdog. I love the underdog. I was an underdog too, and I still am.
So come over here in a neutral spot.
I like this spot. Stop talking about yourself. Boston Rob took you to the end of the game. You didn't do anything. You were made fun of, and you come here and you tell me don't bite the hand that feeds you? I feed myself.